Welcome to Sports Night, your inside look at sports in Stoughton. I'm your host, Jeffrey Pickett. On this episode, we bring you the story of how Devlin Carroll, one of the senior captains on the Stoughton High football team, is spending this season honoring the memory of Paul McEachron, one of Stoughton's fallen soldiers during the Vietnam War. While many of the jersey numbers belonging to this year's Stoughton High football senior class will be reissued next season to different players, the number 22 jersey worn by senior captain Devlin Carroll will not. The number is retired in memory of Paul McEachron, a former Stoughton High football captain and class of 1966 graduate. McEachron was killed while serving in the Marines in Vietnam back in 1967 at the age of 20. Devlin Carroll's grandfather, retired Stoughton Fire Chief Ed Carroll, was Paul's best friend growing up. Ed got special permission from both the McEachron family and Stoughton High Athletic Director Ryan Donahue for Devlin to wear Paul's number this season and honor his best friend's legacy.
Well, I saw the way that Devlin was dedicating, and he showed me a lot of the characteristics that Paul showed, and I thought it would be a great idea, and I know he'd make the family proud, and myself, to bring the jersey out of retirement for 1 year.
So I promised Ed that I would order it for Devlin's senior year with the family's blessing to only wear it this 1 year.
Oh, I was right for it, absolutely. That anything I can do, not a problem. It was mostly, to me, it really wasn't our decision. It was for Paul.
And anything that Eddie would have suggested would have been fine. He's family too.
The decision was an easy one for Donahue, who knew Carroll would represent the number well.
Dealing with Devlin, I think it kind of turned into more of a no-brainer, knowing that if we did bring it back, he's all class on and off, the field. That he's a phenomenal wrestler as well. The family's great, and we knew that there wouldn't be any type of misrepresentation of that jersey. That wasn't even a thought, really.
This isn't the first time Devlin has had the number 22 jersey, having previously worn the number in his Pop Warner days. However, when he got to high school, the number was retired. Last season, he wore number 10.
Started back in Mighty Mites when I was 7. My dad was one of the coaches, so he said that I got the number 22, and I didn't really understand. But then I, later as the years went on, I stayed with 22, and I realized how much it meant to my grandfather and how much it means to me, and kind of gives a little motivation behind the number. And I knew it was retired by Paul McEachron, and so I knew I wouldn't get it in high school. But then we'd mentioned asking to take it out of retirement, and my grandfather kept mentioning it, and I was like, yeah. Didn't think it would actually happen, and then once it happened, I was really excited and really relieved and proud to wear number 22 again.
Paul McEachron and Ed Carroll became friends at a young age.
We moved from Canton to Leach Street when I was about 4 years old. And the McEachron family lived more or less out back in 222 Park Street. And Mr. and Mrs. McEachron had 9 children, 3 boys and 6 girls. And I was luckily enough that they more or less brought me into the family at a very young age, and Paul and I just have been best friends ever since then. The family was nice enough to take me down to Buzzards Bay at their cottage and spent the summers with them, and we were just more or less inseparable.
They were
Inseparable.
attached at the hip. Yes.
That's exactly right. Inseparable.
Where one was, the other was.
Mrs. McEachron, she treated me just like one of the children there and gave me my stupid slap anytime I needed it, and then would send me home. And I needed a few of them.
Paul and Ed were so close that in many ways, Ed was like the 10th McEachron sibling. But that meant no dating any of Paul's sisters.
Claire McEachron was just the same age as I am, but Paul made it clear that I was invited into the family, and they treated me just like a brother, and I was supposed to act just like a brother. So even though I had a crush on Claire, I wasn't allowed to ask her to go out for a date.
But everything worked out quite well for Ed in the dating department.
And then we were about 15 years old, I think, and Paul told me that there was a girl from the St. Mary's that wanted to go out with me. So he hooked us up, and I've been together with her, Kathy Roach Carroll, ever since then, and still married, and she still put up with me after all these years.
Paul was a standout on the football field, serving as captain of the team his senior year.
Oh, he was just tough, and the determination and the courage that he showed on the field was just unbelievable. And we could probably ask any of his teammates that he just showed the leadership that he needed to show, and and led the team all the way. And I seem to find that I'm seeing that a lot with Devlin. His compassion, it shows it the same as Paul's, his leadership, and his toughness too, both mental and physical. So, but Paul was, in his spare time, when we were working on his brother's rubbish truck, we were either exercising. That wasn't my idea, that was his, but he told me I was too skinny and I had to put on some muscle, so he tried to work that in, but I still thinned right out. So, and Paul was just always, physically strong.
We were at his games all the time.
He could run like the wind. He was really fast. He ran a 90-yard touchdown. Nobody could come near him.
Paul was fast. He wasn't that big. He was fast. He was quick. He could change direction relatively fast. He was tenacious on defense. And anything coming his side, he was usually involved in making the tackle or causing something to happen. Probably one of the toughest kids I've ever seen. He was always in our face in a positive way, encouraging us to give a little bit more at all times. We were a fairly successful program our junior, senior year. If I remember correctly, senior year we only played 8 games, which we played a whole lot more. I think we were 5-2-1. He was just an upbeat player on the field, always given 100%. And you're talking 50 years ago. It's 50 years since we played our last game.
The last game of the fall 1965 season came at Canton on Thanksgiving. The contest ended tied at 16.
A tie isn't like a win, but coming off after being down 16-0, shutting them out and us scoring, it was like a moral victory for us.
In addition to being a captain of the football team, Paul McEachron also won the senior superlative for most popular. After graduation, Paul, Ed, and their group of friends from the Stoughton High class of 1966 were ready to enter the service with the Vietnam War underway.
As we graduated from high school, Paul and I and, Donald Clark, Mark Hausman, Joe Pyries, the whole group of us, knew we were going in the service because we wouldn't be going on to college. So I went in what my brother was in. He was the Air Force. Paul's older brother was in the Marines Reserve, so he volunteered there. And Mark went into the Army. I think Joe did too, and Donnie Clark went into the Navy, the whole group of us.
Paul and Ed still had one last adventure together, though, before Paul left for the Marines and Ed left for the Air Force.
After graduation, Paul and I took a trip we were headed for Florida. We made it as far as Washington, D.C., and we ran out of money. But we took some pictures of the White House and we saw everything that we needed to see in D.C. and then come home. And they moved Paul up. He left at the beginning of August. We were supposed to leave around the same time. So he left for the Marines July 30th, I think it was. And I left for the Air Force in August 12th, I think that was. And then Paul went to Vietnam, and I did some time in Taiwan, and then they put me in Cam Ranh Bay, South Vietnam, and that's when I got the news that Paul had been killed in action.
Paul McEachron was killed in action in Vietnam on August 15, 1967. He had turned 20 just a few weeks prior to his death. He was one of 10 Stoughton soldiers who died while serving during the Vietnam War.
One of my other friends from Stoughton, Jack Hurley, did a little bit of research. He's a Marine too, and he did his time in Vietnam. And he got in touch with one of the members that were part of Paul's team that was out. And he wrote us a letter in telling us exactly what did happen to Paul. And he got, they come around the corner, and I think it was 8 or 9 of them got hit by a mine, more or less a booby trap. And we were writing back and forth to each other and everything, and then I still have that letter, but I'm hesitant to read it too often. His body was brought home by his brother. His brother was serving in Vietnam too. You had to get almost a waiver to have 2 brothers in the combat zone at the same time, but David was there and escorted Paul's body back here, and as he was doing that, he was a crew chief on a helicopter, and his helicopter was shot down. So Paul more or less saved him, in all the tragedy that happened then. And I just couldn't get over it, and I had they gave me some time to be by myself, and sent me to see one of the chaplains too. So
I was at work. I worked at Factory Mutual in Norwood, and my mother sent my oldest brother over to tell me that he had died.
I was babysitting for my sister Joan's family.
And to me, it was one of the most devastating things that ever happened to me.
Well, of course, our dad had died 3 years earlier. That was just, insult to injury, 3 years.
Well, Gail, it was because we were so young.
Well, yeah, that's true.
You don't expect your sibling to die. It was the hardest time, I think, of my life.
Ed was still serving in Southeast Asia at the time of Paul's death and was unable to come home for the funeral. But Paul's teammate and classmate, Peter Everett, was there and was one of the pallbearers.
It was a hot August day, very solemn. I was just so dumbfounded during the ceremony, during the Mass, that a lot of it blanked out. I just couldn't believe that Paul had passed away at 20 years old. And here we have, I'm 67, he'd be 68 now. He's about a year older than I was. But we were just all devastated. Word of it traveled real quick and got to us. Personally, I couldn't believe that this had happened to him. I was afraid when I had heard that he and other Stoughton people I knew went over to Vietnam could possibly be killed. And that Paul's death just came true, and it was so devastating to all of us that knew him, whether you were close to him or just in the high school class, the class of '66.
And then when I did get home, the hardest thing I ever had to do was go see Mrs. McEachron. And as a matter of fact, I didn't go the first day I got home. And I kept on putting it off. And when I did go right through the backyard and saw her, she just gave me the biggest kiss and hug. And we both cried a little bit. And then she stepped back and gave me a stupid slap. And she says, "Why didn't you wait more?" And then she kissed me again. And she was really, really a gutsy lady.
Paul McEachron is one of the fallen soldiers we have a moment of silence for during each Veterans Day and Memorial Day ceremony in Stoughton. He has a memorial square at the corner of Park and Sumner Streets and was posthumously inducted into the Stoughton High Athletic Hall of Fame back in 1992. Keeping his jersey out of circulation was yet another way of honoring his legacy. Peter Everett, who was a longtime physical education teacher in Stoughton, was one of the early proponents of retiring Paul McEachron's number 22 football jersey.
A couple of us, right after Paul passed away, we thought it'd be a great thing if we could honor Paul some way. And we tried to get his uniform number 22 retired. Well, Stoughton High at the time didn't retire numbers, but we did talk the athletic directors into not letting anybody wear the number. Each year when I was teaching, I would make sure with the athletic director that 22 wasn't being worn.
The jersey being retired is actually something that I had learned about my first year as athletic director, because I was unaware that it was retired, and we had issued uniforms to the football team that fall, and I actually was notified by the person who I had replaced my original job as phys ed teacher. His name is Peter Everett, who had graduated with Mr. McEachron, and he told me that, "Hey, Ryan, you better take that off. You better get that off." He saw it in the paper. You better get that jersey out of there. That jersey's retired. And I didn't know about that. So, we had brought the student in, got the jersey back, and gave him number 2 instead of 22. And, he wasn't all that happy about losing his number, but he understood and really handled that well. He's the only number that I'm aware of that's retired, and it hasn't been worn since that first year up until recently. So I was approached last year when we got new uniforms. We upgraded to some really nice set of uniforms for our football team, and I didn't order number 22 because I knew no one could wear it. And I was approached by Ed Carroll, who turned out to be closest friends with Paul McEachron, and he asked if his grandson Devlin Carroll would be able to wear, his number in that.
Now that the number 22 jersey is being worn again for this season, it brings back memories for Ed.
Well, I have visions of back in '65, and I keep on thinking about the Canton game, and I see number 22 out there, and he's in on every play, so that's important to me. And my wife, we went to the game last night, and we're seeing Devlin out there, and it really, really making us proud, and Paul means a lot to both my wife and me, and I brought that up with my children too, because I have a little room downstairs and it has Paul's picture. And when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, the girls were nice enough to give me the plaque that they presented to the family. So that's downstairs hanging up with Paul's picture.
Well, seeing how much it means to my grandfather, like I said, it kind of reflects on me. I mean, he always tells me how Paul is tough as nails, determined, all that great stuff about him, and kind of just what I want to roll my game after, kind of follow his footsteps.
Devlin is excelling on the field in his senior year. He's one of the team's top defensive players at the linebacker position.
This year, it's kind of different than the rest. I mean, I always go 100% on the field every play, but this year I know like might be my last play at any given moment. Injuries happen, and I just want to leave it all out in the field, do what's like best for the team. Don't want to make any mental mistakes. Be in the right position, just make every play I can.
Like Paul, Devlin isn't the biggest kid on the field, listed at 5'8" and 175 pounds, but he's one of the toughest.
He's a heart and soul of our team. He's, maybe smaller in stature as far as height, but not as far as strength and toughness. He's as tough as they come, and I can't say enough about him. He never complains. He's had injuries before and never would tell you. He's what everybody looks at and says, that's what I want to be. He's so tough to block, and he tackles well, and he's very, very smart. And he knows what to do, when to do it. And he might not be the most talented player we've ever had, but as far as desire and determination and this true Stoughton attitude to be part of a winning team and not put himself first is on the highest level. He's on the highest level.
Devlin serves as a captain of the Stoughton High football team, just like Paul did 50 years ago.
I'm really proud, especially because Paul used to be a captain, and now I'm a captain. Means a lot. Some of my closest friends are there with me, so I've been playing with them for almost 11 years. It's been crazy. I don't think a day goes by where I don't hang out with at least one of them. I mean, they're always coming over, watching film, making the CD, warm-up tapes, always texting them, always keeping in touch. I mean, just a bunch of great guys to be around.
The brotherhood that is Stoughton football reaches beyond just current players. In every post-game huddle, Coach Greg Burke mentions playing for all departed Stoughton football players and ends the huddle with the saying, "Us, we, together, forever." For Coach Burke, it's one big Stoughton football family, which includes all past players as well.
Oh yeah, all the people who have been on this program and played since 1926, they're still with us. Their spiritual togetherness is never forgotten. I don't know all of them, and a lot of people don't know all of them. But any Stoughton player that's worn the black and orange and been in this town, played for this high school, is part of the football family. There's an awful lot of years. There's 80-something teams, 89 or whatever teams that have done the same thing. I don't know how they did. I don't know all of them, of course, and that's very important. They're with us. They are with us and never leaving us. And spiritual togetherness is something that I think is very important.
As you can see, Paul McEachron is still having an effect on us now, watching down, helping us through the games. I mean, that's really means a lot.
And as close as Paul and I were, I know Paul's up there looking down and kind of smiling for the whole thing. And he'll give Devlin a kick in the butt anytime he needs it to get in on the plays, too.
Devlin must have received one swift kick in the butt in Stoughton's opening round playoff game against Walpole on October 30th of this season. Devlin made arguably the two biggest plays of the game in a come-from-behind 21-20 win. He intercepted a Walpole pass late in the second quarter, setting up the Stoughton offense to get the tying score going into the half. And on Walpole's last drive of the game, he came around the edge and sacked the quarterback, forcing a fumble to cement the victory.
And it's almost like he is channeling this inner spirit right now he had a sack fumble, strip sack fumble to essentially win the game for us at the end of the game against Walpole. I mean, he's just playing at a level that, we'd always hoped that he would get the opportunity to do, but to see it really happen it's been special for sure.
My whole family is very proud of the job that Devlin's doing, and he's holding the number 22 up there high, and that's where we need it, and he's doing a good job for us and the McEachron family.
Just that I'm honored to wear Paul's jersey, and really means a lot to me, and obviously my family and the McEachron family.
You know, Stoughton's a special place, and you know, I love it here. This is a great community, and for this to come up is it's pretty unique, and I'm really happy that it's worked out the way it has, and that the family would be so open to allow that to come back, and everyone else be understanding that this is a one-time thing. It's, you know, after Devlin finishes his senior year, it's not going to happen again, unless maybe Devlin's kids someday were to play football for Stoughton. Hopefully they would. But yeah, no, it's been really fun to see him wear it and represent it so well, and see it mean so much to so many people.
And I think it's a great honor that Eddie and his family are doing this in honor of Paul. I got an email from Eddie and his wife saying that it was going to be worn this year and the reasons why, and I was behind it 100%, and it's going to be retired again next year. And you know, 50 years, it's a long time, and people don't remember this. I'm sure people that are playing ball now don't understand why we had Paul's number retired. But it was just something that we felt we had to do in his honor. We respected him that much.
I just think it's absolutely awesome that after 48 years, somebody remembers my brother. And I feel honored.
I think Paul would be impressed.
He sure would.
Special thanks to the Carroll family and to the McEachron family for sharing this story. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Jeffrey Pickett. I'll see you next time on Sports Night.